Hello and welcome to the Tough Girl podcast, which is all about motivating and inspiring you. I'm your host, Sarah Williams. The Tough Girl podcast is sponsorship and ad-free thanks to the monthly financial support of patrons. To find out more about becoming a patron, please check out Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl podcast. There's over 200 patrons who are currently supporting the mission to increase the amount of female role models. Take action now to become one of them. All patrons will get their name on a dedicated patrons page on the Tough Girl website, toughgirlchallenges.com. Today, I'm delighted we're going to be speaking to Sara Al Awadhi. Sara is an international lawyer based in Dubai, United Arab Emirates. However, on the weekends, she likes to spend her days exploring the mountains of her homeland, mapping out new boulder fields and establishing first ascents.
As you've said, I'm a lawyer. I'm based in Dubai. I've been born and raised in Dubai, and I only started climbing about 4 years ago. And I started out with climbing at university on rock walls, so indoor rock walls, and joined a climbing club. I loved the culture, but once I moved back home after university, I wasn't really aware of the things that I could do outdoors. And it was really only the past 2 years where I had met my husband, who's American, and he's from Illinois and has spent most of his life mapping out potential boulder fields in his hometown and other states in the US. So when I'd met him and started to learn that was possible, to be mapping out, your own fields and not having to only go places that have already been discovered, I was really excited about this opportunity. And so him and I really just started to look at Google Maps, zoom into different areas we think have boulder fields. And if we found something, we just jumped in the Jeep and went over and checked it out. So a lot of the climbing is actually in Ras Al Khaimah, which is our northernmost emirate in the UAE. For those that aren't aware, the UAE has 7 emirates. They're like states. And Ras Al Khaimah is one of them. So shortly after we met and realized we both liked rock climbing, we started to map out these fields and spent every weekend really driving out, scoping out new fields. And then if we found something we liked, we would just project the whole area. And the reason I came on today and reached out to you is because, well, first of all, I would really like to highlight the climbing scene in the UAE. Well, apologies. I'd like to highlight the climbing potential in the UAE because at the moment there isn't really a climbing scene. There's a little bit of sport climbing, but the bouldering scene is almost non-existent. And to be honest, the climbing scene that is here is very, I don't know how to say it, but very Instagrammy. People will go out and just scramble on something and take a few photos. And it's also not very inclusive of the local people. A lot of the people that climb are people from different countries that are temporarily in the UAE. So they'll form these little climbing communities, which is absolutely fine. But Dubai and the UAE is so transient that these people will stay for about 2 or 3 years. And they'll create topos. No one will post things on Mountain Project. And within 2 or 3 years, once they're gone, this know-how of potentially great areas to climb is gone with them. So I was hoping to be a bit more involved in the scene and highlight it a bit more. We have some really great boulders and boulder fields out in the UAE. So I'm hoping to highlight them today and to also be a bit of a representative of Arab Muslim women in the climbing scene. As once I got really into climbing, I realized that not only is there not that much representation, but also that our culture, Arab culture, actually doesn't really support women in climbing. Mainly, the main reasons being that first, the stuff you'll wear to go climbing is generally a bit more, based on the temperature, it'll be, jeans and a tank top. And also it's just not seen as a very womanly thing to do. So it's something that's frowned upon. And I think women in the Arab world are deterred from doing it a little bit.
I'd love to go back to your childhood, actually. You're born and raised in Dubai. What was that like in terms of sport, being a girl, growing up, health and fitness? Did that play a part in your life?
Well, growing up in Dubai is very interesting because, when I grew up there was, we didn't have the tallest tower in the world. We didn't have the biggest mall or tourism wasn't this huge thing. And just Dubai was completely different. It was a very tight-knit community. You could walk along the street and you'd, sit and have lunch with your neighbors, just in their yards, like very, very close community. And also outdoor spaces were something that was a lot more frequented because we didn't really have malls and a lot of these indoor things. In terms of fitness, there definitely was a emphasis on fitness, but it was a lot more in the context of doing sports, in school, after school activities like soccer, handball, things like that, or horse riding. That was always a very big one. But in terms of outdoor activities, it was really limited to camping. So growing up, my family was very supportive of me being active. I did a lot of horse riding growing up. Definitely no climbing, but yeah, they were very, very supportive. Although I should say that as women get older, there's a bit more of an emphasis on being less sporty. You can be healthy, of course, it's very important, but I feel like there's a bit of a mentality where, as women get older, being active being healthy is very important, obviously still, but in terms of being active outdoors, especially, and, doing outdoor sports and adventures is something that is not really encouraged. It's seen as boyish. And, so a lot of families will have, the women shy away from them, or women themselves will just feel a bit like, oh, it's no longer my place really to really be involved in these things. I don't want to be seen as very boyish. The mentality is definitely changing. We have a lot of Arab women now who are horse riders, swimmers, all these other activities, and there's a few mountaineers. But a lot of the mountaineering is done outside of the country. And I'll get to that when we talk a bit more about the climbing scene again. To answer your question, I've always been active, but more so, I'm more becoming active outdoors now as an adult than I had the opportunity to as a kid.
Because you said for you, it already sort of changed 4 years ago when you started climbing at university and joined the climbing club. Could you share more about that time? Were you studying in Dubai or had you gone further afield? And then what was that like, making use of those opportunities?
I studied in the UK. That's where I did my law undergraduate degree. And while I was there, while I was in the UK, that's where I joined the climbing club. And if you've ever been to the UK, you know that the weather is kind of rainy a lot. So climbing outdoors is something that's a bit of a stretch to go do. And although I was in Wales, which does have a lot of mountains, it was something that unless you really organize and timed, was a bit difficult to do outdoors. So a lot of my climbing was limited to indoor climbing. And it was really just doing that, though, really sparked my interest in climbing. So even when I moved back to Dubai, I made an effort to join climbing gyms here and climb in these gyms. But like I was saying, I didn't really understand the potential that my country had outside the walls of a climbing gym. And it was only really until I met my husband, Alan, that that he sort of showed me just how easy it is to go explore, your own backyard. And, I've climbed a lot since in different bits in the US, but I would say some of my favorite climbing is in the UAE. Al Ain has some, and Ras Al Khaimah especially. I think it's because the rock is pretty good, and there's some really great problems, but also there's a sense of pride because it's my country and I'm helping develop this amazing scene. I'm not by any means a great climber, but I absolutely love the discovering part because I feel like it's important to take pride in your country and to really show some of its natural beauty. I feel like a lot of people focus on the touristic parts of Dubai and the whole UAE, but through speaking to you and possibly other initiatives, I really hope to encourage people to look at the nature that the UAE has to offer. I was hoping, and I've convinced my husband, to hopefully be able to create a bouldering guidebook for the UAE. And at the moment, there's nothing like that. It would only cover a few Emirates because there isn't really climbing in all of them. But we're sort of looking for like sponsors and just like people, even if it's like the government that would be interested in like helping. Otherwise, we'll just like publish it ourselves. It's just it's been really fun doing it, going out every week and mapping things out. And also it's just really motivating because I know people will use it. We're going out on this blank sheet of paper and finding these fields, whereas if there's this book, people can easily go out and enjoy nature.
It must have been quite a shock actually going from Dubai, where you've got this incredible weather, to going to Wales or into the United Kingdom when suddenly it's lots of rain, cold, grey skies, a bit of a shock to the system, I imagine. But I just want to go back to the climbing of why you decided to join the climbing club. Like what motivated you to take that step?
That's an interesting question. Like I said, I've been quite active like throughout my life, and I never thought it would be an activity that I'd be interested in. But once I saw what the climbing club did, I just attended one of their sessions out of curiosity purely, and just sort of saw how like fit everyone looked, but not in a gym kind of way, like a very natural, organic, like and they ate well, and like I was very motivated by the lifestyles that some of these people who are really into climbing followed. It was very healthy. So that's what initially, got me interested in checking out climbing as a healthy alternative to being active in a place where it's rainy outside a lot and the weather outside is not really conducive to consistent activity. And then once I joined, I just fell in love with it. All of it was indoor climbing, so all of it was with ropes. But it was just the best feeling ever, especially if I tried something like some big, dyno or like, big move and just failed. It was great because if I tried it again and again, eventually, I sometimes got it. And if I didn't, there was such a supportive community that, someone would come up to me like, hey, you did it like this. Why don't you try it this way? And I just loved that. I loved the ability to really continue to push my boundaries. I have like the worst fear of heights. So doing this constantly gives me this adrenaline rush where it's a very positive feeling that if I work hard and I be focused, I can see improvements. And I absolutely love that.
What did you find most challenging at the start? You just mentioned, having a fear of heights. So again, how did that combine with the climbing?
So the fear of heights is definitely still there. People I climb will always make fun when I try to do a high ball, that halfway through they'll be like, oh, Sara's now in her own head because she's looked down and sees how high up she is. But growing up, I know my parents were always very supportive of pushing your boundaries and never really limiting yourself. So when it came to anything I was afraid of, I'd always try to see if it's something that I should really validly be afraid of, or if I should, push myself. And in climbing, the way I get confident is by training more. The stronger I feel, the more confident I feel on rocks, and the more willing I am to, to climb and, be on high balls, because I know that I'm stronger. And even if I fall, like, I've watched so many videos on how to fall, and and I won't really go bouldering if I don't have a spotter, because at the moment I'm still quite new, but all of it's part of the fun. And it's just, I think I'm trying to use my fear of heights to my advantage, that, it just lights the fire under me to continue working hard and trying.
Where do you think that fear of heights came from?
No idea. I guess, to be honest, growing up, I, was very active, but a lot of the sports I did were the highest I'd ever gone is really the level of a horse. I did a lot of horse riding, but I think, and even though, I'll be jumping but there's a whole different element of control there. So I think I just wasn't really exposed to anything that would involve me being at any height where you're not specifically strapped in, or, I guess that would just be it.
How did you find, after you graduated, you moved back to Dubai, and obviously you've talked a little bit about the culture and the differences. How did you find moving back to Dubai and trying to pursue climbing again?
Well, so when I moved back, Dubai is constantly changing. It's, it's amazing that it is developing so much. And because so many tourists are coming all the time, we have to continually, adapt our culture and just do, to sort of welcome people to be coming in. And I think our culture as a result changes a little bit or adapts over time. But in terms of climbing, like I mentioned a little bit ago, that it's quite hot outside. So trying to climb outdoors was something that requires planning. And so it wasn't as easy, especially if you want to drive all the way out to another emirate. You have to try to find a time to climb where the rocks haven't been baking in the sun all day. So, that's just logistical. That's easy to do. But more in terms of my mindset coming back here, it was really, I was gone for 7 years between studying, and then I worked in London for a while. So it really was a balancing act of trying to figure out what is okay here and, what isn't. The UAE is a much more inclusive and tolerant place for women than perhaps some other places in the Middle East. So I'm definitely very fortunate. But, when I told my parents I was going out bouldering, for them, they just laughed. They're like, okay, I don't know what that is. But it's, as long as you be safe, that's fine. But this actually reminds me of a story, it sort of highlights how uncommon it is to see Arab women out climbing. So my husband and I and two of our friends were in Ras Al Khaimah, and we were climbing, we were bouldering, and there was this amazing vertical finger crack problem I was doing. Absolutely loved it. It was like a high ball as well. So I just really took my time. But while we were climbing, there was it's in a wadi. So a lot of Arab families like to camp around those areas when the weather is nicer, just because it's, it gets cooler and it's a bit off the road. So people prefer to be there. So we're climbing, and I see this Emirati family. Emiratis are UAE nationals. So this Emirati family, kind of near us, and I see the dad sort of wander over, and I can see he's pretty curious about what we're doing. You know, we have these pads on the floor, and like people are climbing over these rocks, so I could see him sheepishly coming by, and so I just tell him salam, which in Arabic means like hello. It's like a greeting. So I just say hi to him, and he like gets surprised, you know, and so walks over. It's like, oh, hi everybody, you know, just talking like in English, and is like, how are you guys doing? You know, are you enjoying the weather? And I know he's like from Ras Al Khaimah by his accent. And so I respond to him in Arabic, like, oh, you know, we're absolutely great. The rocks are beautiful. I'm like, the weather's beautiful. I just love Ras Al Khaimah. And, you know, and he was shocked. He was absolutely like, he just sort of froze. And, you know, I mean, first he's like, well, what are you guys doing? You know, so I told him we're rock climbing, and he's like, but, you know, I've only seen people do it with ropes before. So I explained to him what bouldering was, just very quickly, that, you know, we're climbing on these rocks, and we have these pads, so if we fall, we don't like die. And he just laughed. He's like, okay. But his next question, the thing that I think really shocked him, was he's like, but where are you from? You speak Arabic really well, and you speak like an Emirati, like a UAE national. So, you know, but I was in my So Ill climbing jeans and like my tank top and, you know, just normal climbing stuff. And he, you know, so he's like, where are you from? And I told him, well, I'm from Dubai, actually. And he was absolutely shocked, you know, and he's like, are you sure? Like, are you fully from here? And, you know, and I just kind of laughed a little, and he's like, you know, I don't mean to be offensive or anything. He's like, he's like, I'm so surprised. It's really great to see, you know, young Arab women being outside and doing these things. Like I've never seen a woman be like rock climbing. And this guy was in his like mid 40s, you know, so it just reminded me again that like as common as rock climbing is becoming to me, it's not something that's very commonly seen in our part of the world, especially for Arab women. And that's why I'm so excited to be here today, to be this example that, you know, you can go out, you know, you're encouraged to go out, and, you know, there's so much to be discovered. And the best part of that story was that after I spoke with him a little bit, he called his kids over. So we sort of explained to them how to climb. I even like let them try on my shoes. And before they left, they'd actually just given us this big plate of like biryani, which is this like rice and like chicken that they had is like while camping. And it was really nice. And they're like, please, no, have it. Like, you guys have been so lovely to us. It was just really nice. It was like a wonderful end to a really great climbing day.
Why do you think that there aren't more Arab women out there climbing?
I think it is really two reasons. The first being that they simply don't know about it. Not just Arab women, but I think like climbing in the UAE is not that publicized, especially bouldering. So I think it's simply lack of information. So they wouldn't know where to go find it. And it's not brought to the forefront of, you know, their thoughts. And anything you see on Instagram about climbing here is always fort climbing or like top roping, and it's in like two spots. And also in those photos, you'll very rarely see Arab women. So I mean, that's one reason, that it's lack of awareness of where to go, and the lack of representation really to encourage women to really go out. Because it's just at the moment you see these photos, there's a lot of people from the UK, from the US. So it just seems like something, you know, that it's something that the expatriates will do when they're here, and it's not very inclusive, which is the exact opposite of climbing culture. I mean, as you well know. And then the other reason is the cultural reason, you know, and I think the only way that can change is when there's more positive examples of Arab women who are in the climbing scene.
How do women start? How do they get into the climbing scene?
Well, that's a good question, since I haven't been in it for that long. I think step one is really, you know, see what's out there. And, sort of if I'm going to give advice for people in the UAE, I would tell them, or actually anywhere for that matter, I would say, look online. We have this amazing resource, the internet. Look online to see where there's climbing in the UAE or climbing wherever you are, just so you get an idea of what options are out there. And second, for me personally, I think if the first time I ever went climbing was outdoors, I'd feel quite intimidated. My hands wouldn't be rough enough. And especially because I'm not a big fan of heights, I think it would really deter me. So I say go to a climbing gym first. In the UAE, there's so many climbing gyms that are coming up, and just try something. Jump on a wall, rope up, and then also you could try bouldering, and just to get a feel for it, and listen to the instructors. You can watch videos on YouTube. You just basically get yourself comfortable with what the scene is and how you can do it. And I think once they start and once they see, how they can progress and how fun it is, I think that will encourage them. And one thing I saw that people, have done, where my husband posts my husband and I post a lot of things on Mountain Project about climbing in the UAE. And it's always been really nice when people will reach out, who will be like, look, I don't know any climbers out here, but I've seen you post these really cool problems. Here's my number. Like, could we go climbing one day? And, that's happened with a few people. Like, we formed a little, climbing group where occasionally we'll go. And it's just nice. They reach out, see what's there and then reach out. And you don't need to buy a lot of stuff. I think one of the misconceptions is that, especially with Instagram and with all these, just these climbing, all these outdoor magazines, is they're always trying to sell things. And so people sometimes think they need to spend a lot of money, buy the most expensive gear. But it's really only when I watch videos of Chris Sharma and these people where I get reminded you're really supposed to be wearing your old tattered shirt, and whatever pants you have. And, it's all about just going outside and exploring. So, you don't need to be in expensive stuff, and go outside. I think that's the biggest message. Be in the climbing gym for a little bit, but the minute you get a chance to go outside, do it.
You talked about the Mountain Project. What is that exactly?
So the Mountain Project is a free just website that has different, has just information about climbing around different parts of the world. And I love it. It's just, I know there's other sites like it for sure. For me, it's a pretty easy site to use. And it's a great introduction for people who are going somewhere and want to find climbing. You just post photos, you can post routes, and you can post the coordinates for it.
So because you are an insider, what are some of the best spots to climb in the UAE?
In the UAE, there is some climbing in Al Ain, which is in Abu Dhabi, which is our capital emirate. But all of I find the rock a little bit sharp. So I think if you are a beginner, or actually beginner, intermediate, advanced, Ras Al Khaimah, for sure. I found a lot of amazing boulder fields near the highest peak in the UAE, which is Jebel Jais, and at the base of the mountain and all along it really. And even as you're going up the mountain, there's amazing boulder fields. And I know that there's still so much more just around RAK to be discovered, but I know for sure in that area there's several boulder fields, and all from B1s to any level you could want to climb. You guys are climbing out in the UAE, especially in Ras Al Khaimah, there's a lot of farmers. So there's a lot of farms. They're not really fenced off, but basically when you're finding a boulder field, just be a little bit mindful. If there's a farm nearby, not to be yelling on the rocks. The farmers are generally super nice and they don't really care. But but just be mindful. just to keep the vibe positive and to make the people there happy to see more and more of us come.
No, absolutely. Totally agree with that. You've always got to be respectful wherever you are and wherever you are climbing, and especially when there's farmers and there's animals and livestock and everything else around. Can you share maybe a story about when you've gone out climbing where something's happened, whether it's good or bad, or you overcame a big challenge, or you did something that you didn't think was possible?
Yeah, I think every time I've gone out, there's been problems that they've either just been something that it's been, quite a high ball where I really wanted to do, but I sort of had to overcome that fear really of, getting in my own head and not trying it. And I can't stress enough that the minute I think you trust yourself and you just give something a try, obviously never put yourself in a dangerous situation. But if and you're around experienced climbers and you know that this is not a dangerous situation, test yourself, trust yourself a little bit and go for it. Worst case, it's not that high, you fall on the pad, you're all right. And I think honestly, the best story is the one I mentioned a little bit ago, as it's just really fresh in my memory as well. Climbing that day in Ras Al Khaimah and coming across this family, who had no idea what bouldering was and had never really spoke to anyone who was climbing. They'd only ever met, people that aren't from the UAE. So they'd seen them sport climbing and just from the distance and never really went up to them. Just really being able to talk to this guy and have his kids experience climbing, put on our climbing shoes and try it out. I hope that with that, those kids one day will, be encouraged to go outside and try climbing and exploring their own backyard. They're all from Ras Al Khaimah. So I really, I hope that excitement they had that day sticks with them. And we got free food out of it, which is pretty awesome.
You talked as well about, having role models and the importance of that. Who are your role models in climbing? Who do you look up to?
Well, a lot of the amazing rock climbers, there's female and male amazing rock climbers. But I think the one that for me is just phenomenal, even though I've never climbed any off-width, is Pamela Pack. She's an American climber, climbs these insane off-width problems. And I think the thing I just really, really look up to her for is just her grit, her fierceness of willing to try and push her boundaries. And obviously the whole time, when she speaks, you could see how much she trains, how much she'll never put herself really in a dangerous situation where she hasn't trained for. But yeah, just that pure, the pure hard work and grit is phenomenal. And then of course, you have people like Alex Honnold and all these other amazing climbers. With Alex Honnold, the great thing is, he's shedding some light on how amazing bouldering can be, with his new movie, Free Solo. Although I don't think anyone will be trying to do any of the problems he's done, considering it's, you don't have a rope and you're climbing crazy heights. But with movies like that, I think the one amazing message is that, it reminds people that our nature is not abundant. It is, our natural resources are limited, and just to take care of our parks. And, and that's the message I would love to get across to climbers in the UAE as well. And just around the whole Middle East is, take care of our outdoor spaces. Don't litter. And one thing another reason I'm really excited to be exploring and doing this guidebook and everything is because the number of times I'll come across people that will, whether they're just from different parts around the world, will always be I discovered this really amazing boulder field in the UAE or in Egypt or, and I discovered this and that. And I just kind of laugh. I'm I couldn't realize what was bugging me when I first heard it or why I found it funny but annoying. And then I realized I'm because they didn't discover it. There's been like my ancestors here for hundreds of years, goat farmers, like just regular people that have been climbing on these rocks, who've been exploring these like wadis and these fields and creating these trails. Yeah, they haven't been like top roping or setting in bolts, but this is their land. Like, and so I think it wasn't, so what I'm saying is not getting discovered, it's getting appreciated. And I definitely would never, ever discourage anyone from exploring and finding, cool routes to do in the UAE or anywhere really. I definitely encourage it. I think what I realized, how I was feeling, was that I'm not annoyed that people are saying they discovered these things. It reminded me that there's a need for Arabs to actually be like, to recognize that, we do have some great stuff. Why don't we be part of this discovery and, exploration? Because everyone I know that climbs at the moment, who like really is like an avid climber, or like mountaineers, and they're always going to another country. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's just, develop here. There's such great stuff.
What's next for you? What have you got planned for 2019?
We're going into summer, so there's going to have to be a lot of night climbing. So I'm looking to do that a little bit more. I want to continue developing the boulder fields that we found. Yeah, I want to, explore those fields. I want to start writing about climbing a little bit more, getting the word out and encouraging people to really just get out there.
Tell me more about night climbing. How does that work?
Like it sounds, because it's so hot here sometimes. Luckily, it's only, 4 months out of the year that you just can't, like it's too hot. But during those months, being outside in the morning is just not an option. So basically, we got these big lights. They have a little handle with them. They're kind of like spotlights that you'd imagine, like portable spotlights you'd imagine in a construction site. So that's actually what we picked up. We went to, one of these places that sells those construction type additional items and got these 4 big lights that are, so you charge them during the day and then we'll take them out. They'll work for about 2 hours maybe like 4 hours. And, so you take these lights and we can't really go discover new things. We'll have to go in the morning to discover them. So even when it's hot, if there's a new area, we'll try to figure out boulders we'd like to climb and then come back at night when the weather's much cooler, set the lights up, set the crash pads, and yeah, you just climb. The amazing thing though is that it looks so different at night. It's so beautiful. All the stars are out, and you don't have those like city lights and city noises. And it's also, when you're shining lights from different angles, you sort of see the rock in a whole different way. So sometimes you'll have seen the rock a million times, but when you night climb rock, I didn't even realize this is a possible route. It's really exciting. Like it's a fun thing to do, even if you've climbed the same boulders before. Try it at night; it's a whole different experience. And then you can camp, which is usually what we'll do, and then get up in the morning and get those few hours before the sun gets really hot to be able to climb as well.
Sorry, do you have a website at the moment, or are you on social media?
So I am on social media. I don't have a website at the moment. I'm creating one, and it won't just be for climbing. It'll be just sort of for the different things I'm involved in, but climbing will definitely be a big part of it. But that's not set up yet, so I can't give you that. My Instagram is Sari Canary 123. My sister made it for me, and I thought the name was really cute, so I kept it. So it's SAREE _CANARY_123.
Sara, any final words of advice, words of wisdom that you want to impart on the listeners to encourage them to go and try climbing and to get outside?
Yes. I think if there's anything, it would be go outside, just do it. Like, There's no excuse, go outside, even if it's just for an hour. I promise you, you will absolutely love it. And especially if you're a female climber, encourage other women. There's definitely not enough of us in the climbing space, which is such a phenomenal space to be in. So yeah, encourage people and have a great time and be safe.
It's all about encouraging other women to step outside of their comfort zone, to do things which scare them, which excite them, which is going to help them to grow and develop as a person. But Sara, thank you so much for coming on the Tough Girl podcast to share more about climbing and what it's been like for you getting into the sport and climbing over in the UAE. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey tribe, how you doing? I hope you're having an awesome week wherever you are, whatever you are doing. If you're new to the podcast, thank you so much for listening. To find out more information about me and my backstory and what I've been up to, please do go check out toughgirlchallenges.com. On the website, you can find details of over 200 women that I've interviewed. Just to give you a couple of examples, so at the start of this year, we spoke with Abby Naylor, who's an expedition leader, outdoor instructor, adventurer, and endurance athlete who completed 30 challenges to celebrate turning 30 in 2018. We've also spoken with Bridget Muir, who is a professional mountaineer and first Australian woman to climb Mount Everest. We've spoken with Aisha McGowan, who's on a mission to become the first ever African-American pro female road racer. There is hundreds of interviews on there, a whole variety of different women coming on to talk about adventure, climbing, taking sabbaticals from work, hiking, climbing mountains, conservation, riding bamboo bikes through South America. That's Kate Rules. Climbing Denali and Aconcagua, finishing a 5,000-mile unsupported ski, kayak and bike ride from Arctic Russia to Istanbul. That's Callie Morgino. So there's hundreds and hundreds of women on the Tough Girl website, so well worth checking out. Please do come and follow me on social media. That's how I do communicate, especially through Facebook, Instagram stories, at Tough Girl Challenges. I am on Twitter as well, at _tough_girl. And I do promote all of my episodes that way. I'm a one-woman show. With the goal of increasing the amount of female role models in the media, especially in relation to adventure and challenge and getting physical and getting out there and just living these really, really full lives. So massive thank you to everybody who's supporting the Tough Girl podcast. Like I said at the start, every single patron makes a massive difference. If that is $2 a month, honestly, it is life-changing for me. To get up to 500 patrons would be incredible. We're currently on about 209 patrons, so we do have a way to go. But if you've been inspired by the Tough Girl podcast, please do go check out Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl podcast, and you can find out about the different tiers that we have available. So what you can get for the $2 level, $5 level, $10 level, etc. But make sure you do subscribe to the Tough Girl podcast. I've had a couple of extra bonus episodes coming out, and they normally come out on a Thursday at 7 a.m. UK time. So for the past week, we had Laura Tryon, who has just come back from rowing across the Atlantic Ocean as a part of a team of 4. We've also spoken with Leanne and her partner Antonia about the Arctic Circle race, which is one of the toughest, most physical endurance ski races that you can possibly do. We're also going to be catching up with Stephanie Case in the future. She's a phenomenal ultra runner who's currently living over in Afghanistan. She's done like the Barkley Marathon. She's done the Western States 100. So really, really fascinating women we've got coming up on the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I really do appreciate it, and have an awesome day wherever you are, whatever you are doing. Do you know what would be amazing? Tell one person about the Tough Girl podcast, because that's how we spread the message and we help to grow. So if we're over 750,000 downloads, which is amazing. We are listened to in 174 countries around the world. I obviously would love to reach the 1 million mark. So anything you can do to help me achieve that goal would be fantastic. All right, take care. Lots of love, and I will speak to you soon. Bye.